All right, welcome everyone to our Acing the Behavioral Interview workshop. Um, yeah, um, so um, this workshop's led by WCS Explorations. If you haven't heard of it before, it was called Tech Team, so we do workshops like this. And to start, we're gonna have a short icebreaker in breakout rooms. So we'll put you in breakout rooms and we want you to share your name, your major, your year in school, your pronouns if you're comfortable, and then 2 truths and 1 lie about yourself, and then try to have your breakout room partners guess which is the lie. And that might be for about 10 minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes here. Okay, yeah, so we'll be going over behavioral interviews and how you can ace your next one. Yeah, Melissa. So I guess first off, like, why are we doing this workshop? What's the motivation behind it? And really, recruiting, behavioral interview is kind of like part of the recruiting process a lot of times, and recruiting is hard enough without it being virtual. So this semester it's like especially difficult. And behavioral interviews are kind of one of the ways that companies assess your future performance and behavior based on what you've done in the past. And typically, the better your interview goes, the more likely it is that you'll land the job. There are other factors to that too, but preparing for interviews is definitely a good use of time to an extent. And behavioral interviews can be kind of tricky, especially if not prepared for, but they're not impossible to do. So I hope that you'll feel better equipped for it after this workshop. Definitely practice and preparation are the best ways to prepare. And we'll also use this workshop as kind of a kickoff and introduction to Women in Computer Science Career Services.
Sure. All right, so let's just talk some tips for some general interview prep. So the first things that you will want to do is just to reflect. So you want to reflect on your experiences, you want to reflect on your achievements, your skills, and your background. Keep in mind that the interview is one of the few times that it is socially appropriate to brag. Obviously, like, don't be too flamboyant about it. Don't be like that person who's just gonna like go all out on there. But it is okay to be humble, but brag a little bit about your accomplishments. That's appropriate here. This is also a great chance to reflect on your strengths, places where you can improve, and also if you have any special talents and interests. You also want to be specifically focusing on any information that is applicable to the role that you are applying to. And lastly, one really important thing that you always want to focus on is your past challenges. What did you learn from them and how did you apply them? In addition to reflecting on yourself, you also need to reflect outwards as well. And so one of these things that you do want to do is research, a lot of research. You want to learn more about the organization that you're interviewing for. And we said organization here because there's a lot of different interviews that could be going on. For example, looking for your internship for next summer, looking for a research position, or even interviewing for clubs. I know, for example, the WCS interview is actually a behavioral interview. So if that is something that you're interested in, that's why we put organization as a whole. There's also qualifications for the position that you need to consider. For example, if you're interviewing for a very specific role that is looking for a very specific type of person, or for example, if you're interviewing for like a project management role, there are specific position qualifications that you do need to consider. And lastly, always ask questions to the interviewer. They offer to answer any questions at the end of your interview for a reason, and it looks like you're really unprepared if you don't come with questions. They don't need to be absolutely deep and profound, but they should reflect that you have done some research on the company and you want to learn more and that you're genuinely curious and invested.
So next up, we'll talk a little bit more about behavioral interviews and what they are. Kind of the goal of them is to predict your future on-the-job performance based on past behavior. So that's kind of what interviewers are going to be looking for. So some of the classic questions you might see would be like, describe a time when you accomplished a goal. These are very generic. Or like, managed a team conflict, or a time when you were under a lot of pressure and kind of how you handled that and how you came out the other side. So what you can expect when in one of these interviews is a chance to elaborate on the experiences that you have that are relevant to the job, your qualifications and your skills. So like we said, it's a great time to brag about yourself a little bit. And also kind of in preparation, it might be helpful to develop 3 to 4 stories to use in response to typical questions. So we'll go into detail about this more, but just kind of having some stories that you can flex to the questions that might be asked. And when you're preparing and when you're answering your questions, you can use the STAR method, which we will also start talking about soon. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a couple of example questions of things that you'll encounter in a behavioral interview. So for example, they usually start with like, tell me about a time when you. So for example, like initiated a project or an activity on your own. We're asked to compromise your integrity, help someone improve their performance, applied what you learned in school to real life, made a decision that backfired on you, and we're on a team with a member that wasn't pulling their own weight. And now the important thing is not only to really talk about these example questions and the content that relates to them, but also what did you learn from them and how did you grow as a person?
Definitely. So when you're preparing for a behavioral interview, some kind of like general things you can start with would be preparing those 3 to 4 or more stories that you can adapt to different questions. So a lot of these questions are kind of similar, or you may have a story that kind of covers multiple bases, and that's good because that's just less stuff that you have to kind of like have in the back of your head. The goal isn't to memorize the answers to these questions or specific questions, because there's a lot that could be asked, but kind of having the stories that can flex to these different questions. So each of your experiences that you're thinking about for the story should address core competencies. So basically, like, questions will be asking about your leadership skills or your problem solving, your initiative, your communication, your teamwork, analytical skills, or integrity. Those are kind of like main areas that a lot of these questions are going to fall into. So thinking about what are some good experiences you could talk about that kind of show your abilities in those areas. And then we'll get into the STAR method in just a second, and it'll help you tell interesting and relevant stories when you're talking about these experiences.
All right, so what is the STAR method? So we've been throwing around this word a lot, but we haven't really specified what exactly it is. So the STAR method is a method to help create and structure answers to behavioral questions. You can also see the STAR method used actually in some of the technical interviews, which is what we're going to go over on Wednesday. So steps 1 and 2, situation and task. So briefly describe a recent situation. And we emphasize recent because older situations were probably solved by a very different you. I know, like, I sometimes even feel like I was a different person than who I was like a month ago, or maybe even like a couple of months ago. So a more recent the situation, the more relevant it is to you right now. Also, offer enough context of what happened in order for the interviewer to understand like the nuances of what was going on. Describe what your goal was and why you were trying to achieve it. So talking about these things are really important. Additionally, there is also the approach, which is the A of the STAR method. So you want to describe the actions that you took to address the issue. You want to show your thinking and your approach. And you also want to mention any relevant skills or methods that you used in order to solve this issue. You also really, really want to highlight the obstacles that you overcame and also the solutions that you came up to solve them. The more creative, the better, because this shows that you are able to adapt in the face of adversity. Lastly, you want to talk about the result. So describe your happy ending, or maybe sometimes in the cases, it's not necessarily as happy of an ending, but it's still really important to describe what the result is. If there are tangible results and feedback that you received with regard to your result, definitely talk about those as well. And lastly, always close out with the lessons that you learned and how you want to apply them to the future and potentially how you would be in the role.
So some more resources that you can look at afterwards would be, we have a lot more example questions available through Engineering Career Services. So there's a resource guide there from like 2015, but it's still relevant. And there's also, they have you can do solo practice or preparation on biginterview.com through Illinois. And that has like, just like some solo preparation, random questions, trying to answer the questions on your own to practice. And then another resource would be buddy interviews. I think this is a big one for any kind of interview that you're preparing for, is kind of having someone interview you. They don't have to be especially versed in the field, but it would be good if it was like someone who knows what's up. So like if you were to pair up with someone in this workshop, that would be a good opportunity to just like have them ask you a question. you answer it and kind of discuss or give feedback there. That'll also help you with just like going with stuff on the fly as like real time. And then also Googling is also your friend if you want more questions or resources or advice.
So what if you feel like you need more practice on top of what we have just mentioned? Well, the first thing is to check out WCS Career Services. We'll be resuming the service again in January. And this is a really fantastic thing that one of the people in this call, actually, Nikita, puts together every single week. And she works really hard on it. So I would definitely consider checking that out. You will be able to sign up for a one-on-one session with a WCS officer to do a behavioral interview. So this is a brand new service. We've never tried this before. And we also offer technical interviews and resume reviews. If you're interested, there is a tiny URL on the screen right there, tinyurl.com/WCS Spring Career Services. And this is just an interest form. So what Nikita will do at the beginning of next semester is give you an email, and you guys will get priority signups in order to get a mock interview next semester. This is going to be a really, really, really great resource for getting personalized and curated interview practice. So you'll be paired up with an officer, and that officer will spend like the week between the assignment and your interview to like really, really curate that question to be perfect for you. So this is a really great opportunity, and our officers really do put in a lot of effort for this. And we also offer drop-in resume reviews during our WCS office hours. And so these office hours are every single week, Mondays through Thursdays, 2 to 4 p.m. And they're at tinyurl.com/WCS virtual office. And this is like a really cool space. It feels kind of like a Pokemon game. So if you're into that kind of feel, do stop by the office. There's always going to be a friendly face there because us officers, we take shifts throughout the week and we really, really love to see it when more people come. All right.
All right, so first we're going to go through an example interview with Melissa and I here. Melissa will ask the question and then I'll answer it and we can talk a bit about how it went.
All right, so Darcy, my next question for you is, tell me a little bit about a time when you have shown a significant amount of initiative.
All right, yeah, if you can just click through as I like answer them. Sorry, this slide's a little weird. Yeah, sorry. Could you click again? Okay, so last spring I was a member of an RSO that was planning a display for Quad Day. We had a really good concept, but we were struggling to get the work done. It was going to be a fairly involved display requiring a team effort and many hours of work. Yeah, I could see that the project wasn't organized very well, and I felt that I needed to do something if we were going to produce a high quality display. Although I wasn't an elected leader, I approached the president and volunteered to help put a plan and schedule together in order to complete the display on time. And the president was appreciative of the support that I offered and accepted. The plan that I put together was presented to the organization members and received a high level of support. We successfully completed a display for Quad Day that received many compliments from students and faculty members. So kind of going over that interview there, don't be afraid to ask for some time in between the question and the answer to think about what you're going to say. I was just reading this thing because I didn't memorize it and I wasn't coming off the top of my head, but don't be afraid to take some time to think about it and just kind of have the STAR method in the back of your mind here. You can see that at the different stages, I kind of addressed what you would say in that situation. So like with the results, we talked about the positive things that came out of it and the good feedback that was received and such.